Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video on this little beauty right here, which is the Rex 01 from Arex. This is the compact version or CP version. I have one more mag to go, so I'm going to finish this one off and then we'll tell you a little bit more about this gun. I'm assuming that if you're watching this video, this probably isn't the first time you've heard of the Arex Rex 01s. They seem to be kind of becoming a little bit of a darling in the gun community right now because of the features that it offers and the price that it comes in at, importantly. And then some of the things that I think it does a little bit better than some of the other similar pistols in kind of this category. So just a really quick overview. Again, this is a compact version. They do have larger size, larger frame versions, but it's a double action, single action pistol. So it's got the hammer. You can fire it with a hammer cocked or with a hammer forward. It does have a decocker, so if the hammer is cocked on the left-hand side of the pistol, it has the decocker, which is integrated in with the magazine release. I'll show that to you more on the range since I got to keep this thing pointed down range right now. And then it does have a ambidextrous safety, as you can see there. It's a very much 1911 kind of ish style safety in that it flips up and flips down and that it is frame mounted. And then again, as you can see, it is accessible from both the left hand and the right hand side, which is just one of the kind of few ambidextrous features of this pistol. As you can see, the frame on this thing is a different color than the slide. They do have a couple different colorations for these. I believe it comes with a black. I think this is the green, and then they have a tan as well. So that's, you know, kind of a nice thing for those of you who like that two-tone look. Now, if you're looking at this and it seems to look a lot like a SIG 226, then you are very astute. These do have a lot of similarities to the SIG 226, and probably at some point in the future I will do a comparison video between this guy and a SIG 226 that I have access to, show you the similarities, show you the differences, and kind of give you my opinions on which I like better. I'm going to touch on that a little bit during this video, but I don't want to go too deep into that. As far as the specific specs of this gun, what I'm going to do, instead of taking a whole bunch of time and running down a bunch of numbers that most people don't care about, I'm going to take this part of the screen here and put all the details that I think you might be interested in. Feel free to pause it and take a look at those. But again, I don't want to spend too much time on it since I feel like this video might be a little bit long anyway. So again, feel free to pause it, take a look at what you need to, but with that, I'm going to move on. First, let me talk to you about what this pistol comes with. Now, I got this thing actually used. It was one of my local ranges was shutting down. The owners were retiring, and I got a smoking deal on this thing. But it was used, but it came with all the things that it would come with new, which includes this really nice case, obviously branded from Arex Rex 01. And then inside the case, if I can show you here, it has a nice little foam cutout that fits the Rex 01 perfectly, although I believe it's cut for their full size, actually probably their tactical version, because it looks like it even has the thing for a threaded barrel. But if you look at what it looks like inside, you can tell that it would accommodate both a longer grip and a longer slide that you would get on the full-size version. It also has spots for, theoretically, if you wanted, 4 magazines, if you wanted to have one in the gun, and then you have these 2 slots here, and then another foam pull-out where you can place another mag in there. The nice thing is, they are cut for the larger magazines, so even though these are the 15-round magazines, you can fit like the 18 and probably even the 20-round magazines in this case. This case is also lockable, which should make it, theoretically, I haven't confirmed this, but should make it TSA approved. So if you needed to transport your firearm, you wouldn't have to buy an extra case. This theoretically should suffice as long as you put a lock on, probably on both sides of this. And then obviously, because of the laws in the United States, it does also ship with a little lock, as you can see here, and then actually a pretty decent manual right here. Now, the manual for this one, I'm assuming is pretty much the same for all of the Rex 01 models, full size, tactical, and the compact. And I got to tell you, this is an extremely impressive manual. You know, I don't want to obviously take too much time, you know, going page by page through this, but it's got really detailed pictures, really useful diagrams. You know, it tells you everything you need to know to disassemble it, to assemble it. It even gives you a breakdown of malfunctions and possible causes and remedies for those. You know, like failures to feed, failure to fire, failure to extract, stuff like that. So really good information in this, above and beyond what you would normally see in any other manual that I've ever seen. It even gives you a little service record thing. So if you want to document, you know, I have friends of mine who are very adamant about recording every time they go out shooting, how many rounds they went through, noting if there were any malfunctions, if any maintenance took place, and it has it built into this manual. Now, I don't plan on using it, just because I'll probably end up selling this in the future. So you know, I want to leave that nice and clean for the person after me. But this is easily one of the best manuals. You know, it's even got color pictures in there. Most of them are black and white, but again, this is one of the best manuals I've ever seen accompanying any of my firearms, handguns, rifles, shotguns, any of them. This is probably the best. And as you'll see throughout this video, I think this is just part of the attention to detail that AREX has gone through in the manufacturing of these pistols, because these things are built very, very, very well. If you're like me, you probably think that I've been talking long enough at this point without shooting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up a little bit of a rest and shoot this thing for some accuracy at maybe 7 yards to get an idea of what kind of accuracy this thing has, at least potentially, in both the double action and single action modes. But yeah, so let's go see how this thing does with me behind the trigger. Okay, so right now I have a target set up at about 7 yards, and I'm going to do a few 5-shot groups for this test. I'm going to be using some Fiocchi 115 grain full metal jacket. This stuff has been really good for me, so I'm sure any deviation will be on my part. So hopefully between me and the ammo, we'll be able to show you what this gun is capable of. But if it's going to do as well as I think it will, it should be pretty impressive. So I even have a camera downrange just so we can get an idea of what's happening as it's happening, and if there are any issues, we should be able to diagnose those. So without any further ado, actually, while I'm thinking about it, I brought you over to this side so I could demonstrate the decocker to you. So right here, this little guy right there is basically a combined decocker and slide lock. So they incorporate both of those functions into one little manipulation. So if you push down on that, it decocks it for you. What I'm going to do is for the first shot of each of these groups, I'm going to have it decocked so that I have to do the full double action pull, just so that we can integrate that into the test as well. So without any further ado, let's see what I can do here. Again, I'm gonna hit that little decocker there. That wasn't so good. Interesting. Now, while I load up the mags here to do a couple more groups, I think it's worth noting that these magazines seem considerably easier to load than like a Glock magazine, which is what I'm the most used to. Now, there could be a couple reasons for that. Part of it could just be that the gun is a little bit more worn in because this was the rental gun at the range that I bought it from. So obviously it had seen some use before I got it, so that could absolutely be a contributing factor. Or it could just be that the spring is a little bit easier to manipulate. Now, I don't want to say that it has a weak spring by any means, because I've had zero issues with functionality because of a spring or anything like that. I've had no failures to feed or anything. So again, I don't want to say that it has a weak spring, but it is significantly easier to load than, you know, any other magazine that I've had to deal with before. Even Glock magazines that I've put you know, many hundreds of rounds through. You know, still easier to load than those. So let's go ahead and shoot a couple more groups. Okay, I think that one was the best one. Now I think I should also note that it may look like this thing's jumping around a lot. Now part of that is a little bit to do with the snappiness of it, which I'll get to when I get to the dislikes of it. But part of that is just the way that I'm holding it to do these accuracy groups. I'm holding it a lot looser, so that's contributing a little bit to the jumpiness of it. So now that I've shot 4 5-shot groups, let me go ahead, pull that target down, bring it back, and we'll talk about it. So we definitely got some results that I expected. You know, it is worth mentioning that this is my first double action single action pistol, which by extension means that it's the first double action single action pistol that I've shot extensively. So you know, that double action trigger pull to start definitely is something to get over, but it's definitely not something that you can't train through. With that aside, let's go ahead and take a look at the groups that I shot. Again, these were 5-shot groups at about 7 yards. The first one I shot was down here at on the bottom left, if I can tell, you know, which one makes the L. And as you can see, you know, not great, not terrible. A little bit of vertical stringing there. Part of that, you know, again, I'm sure that's me. We're looking at maybe inch and a half, maybe, from center to center on that one. The second group I shot was down here. This was the biggest group. I'm not sure, you know, what really happened with my point of aim there, but got 4 of them here, another one over here. All told, that's probably about 3 inches. If I had to hazard a guess. Third group was this guy right here. You know, not a great group, not a terrible group. Maybe 1.5 inches there as well. And then probably the best group was my final group, with the 5 shots landing in right around 1 inch. Now, I make no claims of being an expert marksman, so I'm sure most of you out there could probably be more accurate than I could with this little guy. But you know, I feel like you probably wanted to know what kind of accuracy I could do with it, so there is that. You know, even though that the double action trigger pull on this is about 13 pounds, you know, again, it's not an insurmountable feat to get decent sized groups. Again, especially once you've shot, you know, or gotten familiar with your gun, it's really not too much to expect a gun to be able to do reasonably tight groups, or at least combat effective size groups, even out to, you know, 25 yards and even further than that, which I might actually do here in a little bit. I have a 3/4 size steel silhouette target from Thor Target set up at about 35 yards. I have another camera zone homed in on that, so I should be able to get you what it looks like shooting downrange. But I have a full mag, 15 rounds right here. Let's see how many times I can hit it. I'm going to try shooting from the arrest first, and then I'll probably shoot without arrest. But to make sure that my rounds impact the berm safely, I'm going to have to shoot them all from seated, unfortunately. Again, I'm going to decock it so that the first shot is that double action pull, but let's see how I do. Okay, so that might have been a little too easy. I might have to push that target out a little bit further. But first, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can do that without a rest, just shoot that free-handed. I would, at this point, also like to take a chance to thank Fiocchi for supplying the ammo for tests like this one. You know, as you guys have known who have followed me for a while, I've used Fiocchi ammo for a long time. For years and years and years, I was spending all my own money on it. But now that Fiocchi has been helping me out with ammo, it's been allowing me to put more rounds down range and do a lot more testing. So that helps out not only myself, but all of you who like enjoying my videos, you know, however few of you there may be. So again, I definitely want to thank Fiocchi for their assistance, and again, just for allowing me to help continue to make content, especially now that ad revenue from YouTube is going down. But that's a whole other thing. So I'm going to move this rest out of the way and see what I can do, just kind of freehanding this thing. Again, starting with the hammer down for the full double action trigger pull. So we had some misses in there, especially that first one with a double action pull. So again, it's not something that's impossible to get over, but having that 13-pound trigger pull, while obviously being a safety feature, definitely makes it take a lot more effort to make sure your rounds are going to go exactly where you want them to. Not that it's going to be super far off, but you know, it wasn't on the silhouette target, 3/4 size silhouette target at 35 yards. Is that the gun's fault? It's probably more my fault than anything else, but you know, just trying to make excuses. Since I have the ammo, I'm going to take another crack at that. Okay, so only one off that time, and I was able to get the first one on. Again, just takes a little bit more concentration on that first trigger pull, just for me, you know. Obviously, I'm sure those of you out there who are very familiar with M9s or 226s or really any of those double single action guns, you know, it's probably a breeze for you on that first round, but again, still something I'm getting used to. So at this point, I'm going to run through some of the things that I really like about this pistol and some of the things that I really maybe not really dislike, but some of the things that just don't seem to work for me personally. So again, one of the things that I really like is the fact that it does have the safety. Now normally I don't like that. However, what that allows you to do is safely carry it in a cocked and locked configuration like a single action gun, say your 1911s, Browning high powers, things like that. Now, am I ever going to use it? Probably not, but it is nice to have it there, again, for those who like to prefer to carry in a single action mode, so that you don't have to worry about that 13-pound trigger pull on that first round. The other things that I really like that it comes with the ambidextrous features, like the magazine release, which again works from both sides. You don't have to swap anything over. Out of the box, it works on both sides. Actually, let me demonstrate. Got an empty mag here. If I put it in there, you can see pushing the button kicks it out on this side. And then if I put it in again, you can see pushing the button on that side kicks it out as well. So really nice features there. Again, you have the Ambidextrous Safety, which is really nice. I also love the way this gun feels. It's very, very solid. If you're watching this video, odds are you've probably seen the video that Military Arms Channel did as far as a torture test between the full-size brother of this guy versus a SIG 226 Legion, and the Rex 01 was performed exceptionally well. So well that, you know, there's no point in me even trying to redo any sort of torture test, because the one Military Arms Channel did, I think, was so comprehensive and you know, evidence in of itself. But you know, just the solid build to these, I think, is part of you know, why it's so reliable. Now, it does mean it's going to be a lot heavier than your standard polymer framed pistols, but it's not so absurd that it would be uncomfortable for me to carry. But then again, I'm also 6'2", 220 pounds, so I can get away carrying a little bit of a heavier gun. One other thing that I really like, if you notice here, The area below the trigger guard here, where your middle finger is going to rest, is already pretty thin from the factory. That allows you to get your hand up a lot higher than you would otherwise be able to on a much thicker section there. Even Glocks out of the box, I tend to shave that down also just because it gets uncomfortable on the finger. But again, it does allow you to get it a little bit higher up. Another nice thing, it comes with an accessory rail here. You know, your standard 1913 style rail there. So even though this is the compact version compared to the full size, you still have the ability to attach a light, laser, you know, whatever you want to be able to put on there, or a you know, training device like the Mantis X Trainer, which I'll probably be doing a video on today as well. Hopefully that wind's not affecting the mic too much. But again, something to like there. I also like that they have these little front slide serrations. It's not much, but it's definitely enough that if you wanted to do, you know, slide manipulations up there, it's very easy to do so. If you had to do a press check, for those of you who like to do that, it's very easy to, you know, get your hand up there and manipulate the slide very easily, even with a hammer cocked. It's not undoable. One of the things that I like about this over, say, a SIG P226 is the way that their decocker is set up. Now, normally, if those of you are familiar with the 226, right here would be where the slide lock is, and this would be where the decocker is. Now, obviously, decocker is here on the Rec 01 as well. However, the problem I have with the 226 is the way I hold the gun, my thumb is always resting on that slide lock. What that means is the gun never locks open on an empty mag for me. Now, I know that's 100% my fault. I could train out of it. However, the way I've naturally shot for years and years and years, it just doesn't work for me. That's not a problem with this, because at this point, now my thumb is resting on the safety, which holding the safety down is not going to do any harm. And then the decocker is out of reach. Now, I have pretty small hands, you know, like Donald Trump sized hands. So what that means is it's a little bit harder for me to get to that decocker, or especially if I'm going to use it as a slide release, it is a little bit harder for me to get to it. But again, it's not impossible. One nice thing too is, let's say you've run your mag dry, you've slapped in a new mag, you go to release your slide this way, which is a way I don't necessarily recommend. The way it's set up, I've never once had an issue where letting the slide down also activated the decocker. It always seems to be two separate steps. Not exactly sure what engineering magic went into making sure that happened, but that is a really nice thing considering they're both integrated into one. Now, as far as disassembly is going to be almost identical to a SIG 226. You know, locking the slide back, rotating this little lever down, and then you kind of have to hold it down when you release the slide, and then the slide comes off. You have the full length rails all the way down to the end of the frame, which is really nice. You know, a lot of people like that. I do too. And then, you know, it goes back together fairly easily. If you guys want, I can do a very in-depth assembly and disassembly video, but I'm not going to take the time to do that right now. So that's a lot of things to like so far, I think. Let me tell you the things that I'm not a huge fan of. First, one thing that I've already kind of alluded to at this point is the snappiness of it. Now, it's not ridiculous. It's definitely not the worst handgun I've ever shot as far as the feel of it snapping, quote unquote, in your hand. However, because of the height between how high you can get your hand up and where the slide is moving, that weight up here moving is so high that it does make it a little snappier to shoot than, say, you know, my Canik DP9, my Glocks, really anything like that, 1911s, anything like that. But again, it doesn't make it unshootable. It's just not as good as some of the other ones out there. Something else I'm not a huge fan of is the 3-dot sights. Now, most guns these days come with the 3-dot sights, so it's not unheard of, but it's not my favorite thing in the world. They are replaceable. However, at this point in time, there's not too many manufacturers making aftermarket sights for the Rec 01s. Specifically, it might take the same sights as some other gun, but if that is the case, I'm not necessarily aware of it. Now, one of the other things that I don't like, I know I already said that it feels really good, feels really solid, but the actual grip panels here, the material that they're made out of, it's kind of a rubbery material, but it's not tacky like say your rubber Hogue grips. It's a little bit smoother than that. Now, the texturing down here at the bottom of the grip kind of makes up for that. It still gives you pretty positive control over it, and then the cutouts on the front and the back help you as well. But it's not as secure as anything else. Now, I know for the full size, Hogue does make aftermarket grip panels for these, but the compact versions, I have not found any any aftermarket grips that work for them. They may be out there and I just can't find them. But you know, like I said, I can't find them. Now that also takes me to the aftermarket support for these. Obviously, given that these are a newer gun, still kind of a you know, a novelty, not necessarily a novelty gun, but a more uncommon gun out there. That means that the aftermarket support isn't as good. So magazines, there's you know, only a handful of places online I was able to find magazines, and you know, obviously parts are probably going to be a little bit harder to get your hands on as well. Holsters even. There are not many manufacturers that I was able to find online, at least that manufacturers that I trust, that are making holsters for these. If you go direct through Kavar, who I believe is the one importing these, you can get holsters, but they're not from companies that I have any familiarity with, so I don't know. You know, I almost hesitate trusting them. Now that we have the advent of a lot of people making holsters in their home, it's really not a big deal that there isn't as much aftermarket support. And then obviously, if you send your gun to a lot of holster makers, they'll make one custom for you anyway, so it's really not that big of a deal. But just something to keep in mind, you're not going to be able to go to your local Cabela's or, you know, sporting goods store and probably find a holster on the shelf for one of these. So again, you know, there are definitely some things that I'm not a huge fan of about this gun, but by no means does that make it a bad gun. Just some things ergonomically for me aren't great. Again, being able to kind of get to that decocker with my short thumbs isn't the easiest thing in the world, but in my opinion, the benefits of a gun like this heavily outweigh the negatives that I've brought up. So while I do have some you know, grievances to air, it's by no means makes this a bad gun by any stretch of the imagination. At this point, I'm going to try to wrap up my thoughts about this pistol here, the AREX Rex 01 CP. You know, there's obviously a lot to like about this thing. When you look at the price that it's coming in at, it is very, very comparable to a lot of those other popular double action, single action pistols out there. But you know, both the Beretta M9, again, I hope the wind's not affecting the mic too much, or 92FS, or the SIG 226 series. And in my opinion, this does stuff better than both of those. I hate the slide mounted safety on those Beretta 92s, and I hate the location of the slide lock on the SIG 226. This is one that I don't have to deal with either of those issues. Again, it's definitely more accurate than I am. Obviously, when I was doing my part, you could see the tight group that I was able to get, and I'm sure if I spent more time at it, you know, I'd probably be able to tighten those groups even more. One of the more important things when it comes to things to know about a handgun, or any gun for that matter, as far as reliability, I've had zero issues with this gun. I know when I bought it, like I said, it was the rental gun at the range that I bought it at. According to them, you know, having to take their word for it, they had about 500 rounds for this thing before they closed down. So from what he told me, I had zero issues with it in that amount of time. Now, again, that's kind of assuming that the person that I talked to was aware of any potential issues that had gone on. But based on my experience on this gun and other people's experience, I'm inclined to believe that this thing had performed flawlessly. Now, again, because I got it used, I didn't have to experience any sort of break-in period, so I can't speak to there being one, but I doubt it. And then through the several hundred rounds that I've put through this, it has remained reliable for me as well. All in all, I think this is a great gun. If you're looking to carry one, let's say you want something the size of a Glock 19, but you really want a metal frame, you maybe want a double action, single action, or you want that safety, this is a really good place to look. Now, I think for me, if I could do it over again, I probably would have gone with the full-size version. Having that little extra weight out front would probably help with the snappiness of it. Again, not that it's even that snappy, but more so than other guns that I've shot. And then getting those couple extra rounds in those larger mags is going to be easier. And the nice thing about the full-size guns is you have that aftermarket support for those hoe grips, which I'm sure really improve the feel of these guns. But you know, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I'll probably be doing a video in the future comparing this directly to SIG P226, just because again, there are so many similarities between the two guns, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are probably curious about what exactly the differences are between the two. Or maybe more important, the similarities of it. I will say, if you have shot a 226 and you like a 226, you'll probably like this as well. Because again, in my opinion, this does some things better than the SIG 226. Again, that's all my opinion. You may feel differently about that. And again, all the little issues that I brought up are not insurmountable. They are by no means deal breakers. So if you're considering getting one of these, I would highly recommend it. Again, if you haven't already, check out the video that Military Arms Channel did with their torture test of the big brother of this guy. It was extremely impressive and part of the reason why I decided to pick one of these up in the first place. So anyway, all that said, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please go ahead and throw those in the comment section down below. I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can, as always. But as always, I hope you're able to get something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.